All right, with Shandell, we are back. We officially launched Everyday Somatics. This is our YouTube channel where we have everyday conversations around somatics and breaking it down to the simple, just being with our bodies. So today we wanted to riff off of this idea of the need to always be fixing and how can we utilize somatics and this soft curiosity, and I think we'll play with that soft curiosity, but how do we use somatics in our everyday experiences to simply be and to have our bodies support us rather than the desire and like the pull, like that, that instant need to try and fix something. You used the analogy in the last episode about the child that falls down, scrapes his knees and screaming. Do you run up to that child and just say, okay, let me get a Band-Aid and fix this, and oh, it's going to be okay, and
You're fine, you're fine.
you instantly go into that fixing? Or would you actually simply just hold them while they were crying and feel, like, just let them feel, and then as the tears soften and as it's time to get up, then you can say, okay, now what from that? And so
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's where we're gonna kind of riff off of for this episode.
And I really think that this has come up for me because being in the energy healing world, that is kind of our purpose of like wanting to help people fix and heal and making sure that they can move to the next best thing, next best version of themselves, right? And when I have come into somatics, things have started to really shift with me where I'm like, I'm not, my purpose is not to fix this. My purpose is to be with this
Mm.
and then see what's needed from there. So for me, I'm having a lot of this like, how do I not jump to fix? And how do I just be present with what is happening and then be curious about what is needed next instead of just, I got to fix it, got to heal it, I got to get rid of it.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have a specific example that, like, just kind of starting the conversation and painting this picture of utilizing somatics as an awareness and that curiosity of how this is showing up right now versus I am feeling some constriction in my body and oh, I just need to get out of the situation, flight, get out or whatever. Like, do you have anything immediate that's popping up?
So I actually do have a story. I had a client that came in yesterday and she has a lot of stressful things going on in her life. And I will say I am sharing this story with her permission because I feel like that's important to know. But and so she's like, I can't eat. I just have these knots in my stomach, which is really common for a lot of people when they're experiencing stress, right? When they're experiencing stress, you get the knots in your stomach, or you get the, I'm going to throw ups, or you get like the heartburn, it can show up in any different way. But she's like, I want you to just get out whatever is going on in my stomach. And I just kind of smiled and put her on the table. And I said, well, just so you know, I'm not going to take anything out. First, we're going to have a conversation and be curious about what it is that your body is trying to tell you. And she was just like, ugh, right? Like, and so we walked through this whole process of like tuning in and listening. And of course, she said, well, it's already died down since I've been here, which I get quite often. Like as soon as people walk in the room, because the energy of the room is so safe and inviting, it immediately relaxes their nervous system. So I was like, okay, this is great because then it tends to be a little bit easier to connect when it's not screaming at you, right? So she's like, but I don't really want to attach to it because it gets so bad. And so I was like, well, it gets so bad because you're fighting it. Instead of like listening to it, you don't want it there. You're trying to not deal with it. And so I said, the more you fight it, the louder it's going to get. And so that's why you're feeling so sick, is because you're fighting it. So let's just go in and see if we can be curious about what's happening. And as we kind of walk through, I do, this process where we connect with it. I do a little bit of questioning with titration. Um, I'll have them ask it, whatever this energy is, a certain word, and then they feel that other word in their body, which is kind of a cool thing. But then as we got to the last question, I asked, what does it want you to know? And she said, safe.
Hmm.
She's like, the word that's coming is safe. And I said, okay, well, what does that feel like to you? And she said, that I'm safe. And I said, okay, and how does it feel? And she goes, it totally is relaxed. It's relaxing. And she came to this understanding that her body, the sensation in her stomach was trying to tell her that she's safe, that she has this place of safety in her body. But her mind was telling her all of these stories about being unsafe, and the people in her situation are unsafe. And is that part of a reality? Yes, that is a truth. But she needed to know that she was safe.
Hmm.
And so when she could recognize that she was safe, she actually became that safe beacon for the other people in her life. And for her to have that understanding, she was just like, oh my gosh, yes. And so now she's like, now when I start to feel that, I can just tell myself that I'm safe. And I was like, yes, and because this was my like quick to fix, right? Like I don't want to be quick to fix anymore. I said, when you start to feel that, you can put your hand on it and you can just be curious. What do you need me to know? I said, because it might be something different. We don't know. If it doesn't say anything, you can just remind yourself that you are safe. And she's like, oh, I like that. I like that. And I said, because that might be your messenger spot of your body, right? And so it might have different messages for you. So it's good to be curious first, to have yourself feel it, allow yourself to feel it, then become curious about it instead of immediately trying to have the solution, fix the problem, get rid of it.
Get rid of it. Like there's a couple of things that are sticking out from when you were sharing of like this fear of attaching to that. Like if I go in there, then I'm gonna actually have like there is a fear of connecting to this part of your body that is speaking to you. And then also just get this thing out, just get it out. And I'm like listening, I'm like, oh my gosh, if you would have magically got this thing out, which you and I both know would not happen, like she's letting go of safety.
Mhm.
But yet her mind is what was telling her that this meant something bad, or this meant something that like that we needed to release and let go of, when in all actuality, and I'd be curious, there's more curiosity, right? I'd be curious that as she gets curious with this part of her body, that it may shift a little bit and it may not feel as aggressive, because it's like, okay, thank you. Ooh, full chills. You're
Mhm.
finally listening to me. You're finally relating to me. You're finally letting me be a part of this conversation. And it would be curious to see how that shifted for her as she did get curious.
Well, and I think that's it goes back to like my shaking, right? It's when we don't listen and when we fight it, it gets louder. And so it had been going on for so long that the listening, it could have started with that little butterfly. It could have started with just a little twinge, but instead of being curious, we ignore, or we're so busy out here that we don't even notice that it has to get bad enough for us to pay attention.
Mhm.
And it was making her so sick, she couldn't eat, she was just feeling awful all the time. And so it's like, because we don't become curious and we don't listen, it has to get loud enough for us to pay attention. And
Yeah.
so when we start with the curiosity, then it doesn't have to get that loud.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now that she has the curiosity tool and the awareness to listen and to pay attention, then I'm hoping, right, that it will become an easier practice.
And I also like that you brought in, like, when you're curious with it, you may not get an answer one day. It may just be like, I'm here. And you can be like, okay. And I love the constant connection. Like when I'm feeling something in my body, it is like the relating with my other hand or another body part of like, okay, I feel you. Like
Mhm.
I just last night was having some things in the pit. It's like right above my belly button, like my sternum, and like it was based off of money, and it was based off of these fears. And I've been working through, using my voice more and speaking more about this specific thing. And what was really interesting yesterday when it came up, I was like, oh, I have felt you before. I remember something about you. At the moment I didn't, but I was like, I remember you. I remember you've tried to speak to me before. And just in my interactions, I was still with family. I was still doing the things. And I just like, I didn't just stop and be like, okay, guys, wait, I need to go actually process this with my body right now. While I'm in company with other people, I just sat with it. I'm like, okay. And I put my fingers to right where it was at. And I was like, I feel you. I
Mm.
feel you. And what is it that you want to share right now? And what is it that I get to be with you? And it came out and it told me, and I was like, okay, yes, yes, I understand that. And I understand that there in the past, this is some things that was associated with it. And now I get to, now we're like working with that. And I like, it was this conversation with my body while there was still things going around me. Like, and I just got to have a conversation with it. And it stayed with me for a little bit of time. It wasn't like, okay, you touched me and now I'm gone. It
Right.
was there for a couple hours, to be honest.
Yeah.
But in the past, here's what's different with my somatic awareness, that in the past, I would allow the mind to
Yep.
continue with the story of, even if I checked in first and I was like, oh, that's what you're about. Oh, da, 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 da. And then I'd be grumpy. And then like, I'd be like, not be able to be in that space of interacting. I would like have tried, like my mind would just be going with the story of the, like, okay, no, we just need to get it out. Okay, I hear you, get out, get out, get out, get out. And then the whole next 2 hours was just this constant, just mind chatter. And it was
Yeah.
just such a beautiful, just no, I get to be here, and you can be here too.
Yeah.
As I'm doing this, as we're doing this, and you get to be here.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest part for me is that very first thing is just have the awareness that it exists. And then you were like, oh, I feel you. Like you put your finger on it. You were like, what is this? Like, I'm okay. It's just here in my body.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, ew,
Right. There you are
why am
again.
I feeling like this? Ugh.
Yeah. And then, does your mind, or I guess like, how do I want to word this, to like frame it in the space of, is there clues? Okay, I'll just share it, because there's the clues like of me when I'm like, okay, I touched it, and it still happens where, the mind wants to start and create the story, where then I'm like, haha, mind, you are funny. I don't need to hear from you anymore. I actually want to hear from this part. So, like, do you have any like advice or insights on that, of just instead of letting the mind go crazy? Because your client represented that she wanted to just get this out. Her mind wanted to get it out, but through, your practice of guiding her, that what, you were allowing her to be able to be with the body.
Well, I mean, I think it's practice of remembering that we have a body. And remembering that how important it is to connect with the sensations that we have in the body. I
Yeah.
actually had a really cool experience last night with I'm in this somatics course right now through my school, and they have these really cool think, feel, and sense circles. And so we were kind of going through this exercise, and one of the ladies on there, she was standing on the think, and she's like, well, when I think that I'm about taking this course, like I want to do it. Like, yeah, it's like my mind's like, yeah, this is super cool. We should know about this. She goes, and then I get on the feel and I feel nothing, because when we get on the feel, we're supposed to be seeing where we feel it in the body, right? Or what the feeling, the emotion is in the body. And she's like, I feel nothing. And I'm like, okay, you're saying that you think you should be taking this class. If I ask you, what is your desire for taking this class? Where do you feel the desire in your body? And she's like, I don't. And I said, but you think you should be here? And she goes, yeah. And I said, then you shouldn't. Because it's all in the mind. Our mind is going to convince us that we should do things, we should get rid of these emotions, we should. But unless our bodies are lit up about something, and that's either good or bad, it doesn't matter, right? But our bodies will be lit up. If our bodies are not lit up, two things are happening. We're dissociative or we don't care about it,
Mhm.
right? And so that was a super cool experience. And she was like, yeah, and she works there. So it's like one of those things where it's like, well, of course, I work here, I should take this class. And it's
Yeah.
super cool. And I said, it's super cool and you get to have people practice on you all the time. Doesn't mean you have to take it.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh my God."
It I hear the word like body autonomy. There is like I want to have more conversations around soul autonomy, but what I'm hearing you say is that like we have this body that can show us our autonomy or sovereignty is another word that people use, right? But we're not taught to say, okay, if my body is showing me this, I'm feeling nothing. My mind says I have to. We talk about, don't shit on yourself and the have tos, but this is like very elementary of that that we're not taught to listen to our bodies, and we could go into the childhood conversation around this if we really wanted to. But here's this, I'm assuming a adult woman, right? That here she thinks she should be here, and then her body's like she feels nothing. And then when you take the next step to that sense bubble, I would be like, what's gonna happen with that sense bubble as if you're feeling nothing, and then you maybe ask the question of like, what else would you be doing on a
Mm,
Wednesday evening at this time? And seeing how like if there's different feelings or senses from that
yeah,
other possibility, you know?
yeah,
Um, but we're not taught to like listen to the body. It's just like your mind has to figure it out. And it's okay to say no to things when your body says no.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What would you say? So I know we both, from our conversation last week, there was this idea of soft curiosity, and you've touched on it a little bit of this being the curiosity with the awareness and just the simple, like, okay, I'm going to be touching you. What does soft curiosity mean to you, and how does that support? And the like, I'm just picturing this listener that is like heard somatics all over the place and, like maybe has done some somatic practices or attended classes where they mention somatics, but they maybe actually don't really know like what first steps to take from an awareness in a personal space, like not having somebody direct you what to do.
Right. I mean, for me, I think soft curiosity came from the place of not needing to fix anymore. It became that place of just curious. Like for me, softness is curiosity.
Mhm.
And it's like nothing needs to be done about this feeling and sensation.
Mm.
And for me, that is soft curiosity. Because if it's not soft, then there's a like a I don't want to say purpose or intention, but there's like a what is the word I'm looking for? Like a direct link to solving or fixing.
Solving. Mhm.
And so if it's just curiosity, then it feels like something that can softly land.
Mm.
It feels like I don't have to do anything about this besides just feel it. And for me, that has softened a lot of the way I do the practice for myself.
What would
Because I used to also think that like I had to have an answer for everything. I had to figure everything out. Like that has been one of my coping mechanisms for a long time is like I have to figure everything out. And now I don't have to. I don't have to have the answers. I don't need to know the whys. I don't need to do this because I just get to be curious. And when you're curious, you aren't looking for an answer.
Mhm.
You're not looking for something specific. It just becomes this completely unknown and you're open to whatever it's going to show up.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
For me, soft curiosity is it's that energy of again, like not having to fix it. I just get to be with you. I get to relate with you. I get to like um be curious of what is going on, like why this is showing up without having to dig deep. There was a part in my journey a couple years ago of I realized like I don't need to keep digging for more. Like I feel for me, my life experiences, they're my greatest teachers, but I was kind of working with different people where it was like, hey, let's find all of the puzzle pieces to this emotion that you're finding, find all of these puzzle pieces to this experience. Like, and I like I didn't listen to my body at the time because my body was like, oh, that's too much. That's too much. Like, and actually, I do remember the time when I finally got permission that I didn't have to get all those puzzle pieces. I was in my somatics class with Luis, and he made the comment. He's like, "What if you don't actually have to go to the root of this trauma?" And he like said it, and I don't think he meant to say like it wasn't part of. And then he just stopped himself. He's like, "Wait a minute, let's actually just feel where that landed in your bodies." And I sat with it, and I was like, I like literally just you're on YouTube. Like my body just melted, and it's like I don't have to dig in. I don't have to just keep like uncovering more and uncovering more. And so like to take that back into the soft curiosity, the pieces will emerge. The
Hmm.
pieces that are meant to be seen will come out, but I don't have to just like it feels like I'm like deep sea fishing. You have to keep casting it out there and finding what comes up on the hook. And I just get to be with just this right now, be curious with just this right now. Okay, I have this, if I can be present with all that's in this present moment, then when I have capacity or when it's time to look at things from a different lens, because I think healing is like a spiral, like things come back around for you to look at it from a different perspective. Something will come up later when I get to see it differently, but it just feels like me melting in the chair of like I don't have to dig for gold, man. The gold's on the surface. Like I just need to uncover just this
Yeah.
one piece.
Well, and so yesterday, I was sent you a message yesterday because I'm working on this project and I was like, oh, I'm like butting up against my capacity. I'm not sure if I can do this. And then I could start to kind of feel like that panic, right? And I sat with it and I was just like, oh, okay, this is what it feels like to have this panic in my body that I don't know if I can do this. And I was like, oh, it's this wounding of mine of I don't I don't know if I have the capability to do what I think I am meant to be doing right now. And I did not have to go anywhere else with that knowing. I didn't have to say, oh, it's because this is what happened to me when I was this age. It wasn't because of this situation that proved it to me in this way. It was just like, that is the energy that is present in me at this moment. And I'm going to hold that presence and I'm just going to be with that presence. And then what?
Mm.
Right. And then I just happened to listen to Lisa's podcast and he gave me my answer. So,
But yeah, I can go off on a tangent on that of just like because you were present with your body and with the awareness of your body, how, and the piece that did emerge for you. And then I was like, spirit's like, okay, she's ready to to hear this. So there's
well,
a
and if
connection
I
to all
had,
of that.
yeah, and if I had just been like, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling the anxiety of like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. And then all of a sudden I leave my body and I'm all the way up in my head. And then my head's like, yeah, we don't think we can do this. And then the story starts to go and I've completely lost this
Ooh,
messenger, right? And so because I stayed present with what I was feeling, the mind couldn't tell me any stories.
yeah.
It was just like an awareness of like, this is what's coming up. And I was just like, oh, body, yeah, we are feeling that. Whew. And I just let myself feel it. So my awareness was with my body
Yeah.
completely. So it was like a tagline attached to a sensation in the body, but it didn't, there was no story.
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah,
just
for me,
like,
that's the soft curiosity.
yeah, when I'm like, I feel like we could wrap this episode up, but I'm just sitting here of like, what is possible if we can let go, like, of the stories, right? Like, if our bodies, and what I've noticed, my body speaks very short. Like it's not these paragraphs, it's a sentence or a word or a couple
Hmm.
words, right? But the mind, and we talk a lot about ego and mind in general in the healing communities and whatnot. From like my body is just so simple. And my mind wants to be like, it's not that simple. And so I guess I'm bringing this up that as you're listening in, you're like, this seems just so simple. And I want you to get curious of really what simplicity could do for you in your healing, in your experiences, in your relationships. For me, it's softened. I do love that, that word soft curiosity is softness. Like it has softened so much that I'm like now practicing listening more and
Hmm.
being in that space of listening because when my body tells me to pause and slow down and I'm not fixing things, I also am catching myself doing that with other people, that I can just simply listen to them and I don't have to jump to fixing.
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying, our bodies are so simple. It's just a sentence or one word. The perfect example was my client. What does it need? Safe. It was literally one word, like one word. And I was like, wow, what does that mean to you? And she's like, that I am safe. And that was like, safe, I am safe. And that was it, you know? So it really is. And that's what I think I love so much about somatics is that once you have the awareness, it's so easy to do and it's so easy to implement. And it is, I mean, it's a big thing right now, but when you put it into practice, it's so easy and simple.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts besides that? We can end on that, huh? It's easy.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
takes practice.
It takes practice. It takes practice and patience as always. But yeah, I love the soft curiosity is a game changer.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Ooh, I could
Not
go
curiosity with a resolution, curiosity with ease.
curiosity with ease, just ease. Ah, all right. Well,
Okay.
that wraps up this episode, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Okay.